Welcome to The Wrong Woman. This is a story of love, secrets, and surprises. Marina feels trapped in a small village, bored with housework, and far from her old life in London. One day, a stranger appears at her door, changing everything. From that moment, her world turns upside down with wishes, misunderstandings, a detective, and finally the truth about love. Dive into this tale of mystery and romance. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss more stories like this. Chapter 1. The List on the Fridge. Marina looked at the fridge and read the words stuck on the door. Wash the dishes after eating. Vacuum the floor. Do the ironing. Clean the house. Go shopping. This was her top 5. It was like the top 10 songs on the radio, but different. Her list was actually the jobs she hated the most. The one at the top was the job she disliked more than all the others. Sometimes she could not choose which job she hated the most, so she put 2 or 3 at number 1. She wished she could put all 5 at the top. Marina disliked every kind of housework. Full stop. There were only 2 reasons why she didn't put them all in first place. The first reason was that the fridge door was not big enough. The second reason was that moving the words around was the only thing she enjoyed in the kitchen. While doing it, she made a cup of coffee, drank it slowly, and thought about her life. Sometimes she played a game using the letters to make new words, more interesting words such as move away from the village, go back to London, find work and meet fun people. One time she almost used all the letters and the only words left were leave Tom. She quickly put them back. She hated housework, but she loved Tom. She did not want to leave him. Tom and Marina had been married for nearly 3 years. They had spent the first 2.5 years in London, wonderful, exciting, busy London. Now they lived in a small village called Felton, near Cambridge. They had been there for 92 days, and looking at the clock, 4 hours and 38 minutes. She looked again at the fridge. The words had magnets on the back, so they stuck to the metal. She thought about how other people used them. Maybe to write messages like, dinner is ready, I am in the West Indies, or the cat ran away, I'm going with him. When Tom first saw her list, he smiled and said, so this is your to-do list. Good idea. Then he added, by the way, there are 2 U's in vacuum. When she explained her top 5 idea, he looked sad and put his arm around her. Oh, poor you. I know it's hard for you to live here, but you are not too unhappy, are you? Give it time. Maybe you can find something to do, get a job in the village, have coffee mornings, or even play golf. But Marina stopped listening. Tom loved making lists for work, home, books to read. He even made lists of lists he wanted to make. On holidays, he wrote lists of things they could do. Sometimes he spent the whole day just making the list, and then it was too late to go out anyway. He even made lists of places to eat and what food to order. But their list of friends in the village was very short. They had none. Everyone was older, even the grandchildren. Marina thought about Tom's ideas. Work in the village. There was only one shop and a cafe, both run by Mrs. Pringlesmythe, who never needed help. Coffee mornings. The village women only liked to talk about the weather and how everything had changed for the worse. Marina did not understand. Nothing had changed since they came here except for a new lottery sign outside the shop. Golf? Marina never understood why men liked chasing balls, small ones, big ones, round or not round. To her, it was just silly. She looked again at the fridge. Poor Tom was so busy with work that he didn't see how bored and unhappy she was becoming. She moved ironing to the top of the list, went to the ironing board and picked up a shirt. She couldn't remember if she had already ironed it. It looked like someone had played football with it. She remembered a time when she ironed one side of a shirt, then the other side, but it still looked messy. She spent half an hour ironing the same shirt. That was her idea of a bad day. Marina looked at the mountain of clothes waiting for her. It wasn't a small mountain at all, more like Mount Everest. How could two people have so many clothes? And why did they always need ironing? Why couldn't she find someone else to do this boring job? And just then, someone knocked at the door. Chapter 2. The Visitor. When the doorbell rang, Marina did 3 things. First, she did nothing because nobody ever rang their bell. Nobody visited them, so she thought she must have imagined it. Second, she put the iron down on the shirt. Third, she walked slowly and carefully to the door. She looked through the small hole in the door. Someone was standing outside. She could not see if it was a man or a woman because the hole was too high to see their face. She looked again, and then jumped when the bell rang once more. She tried to remember what to do in this situation. In London, she had often opened the door without thinking much about it. But in the village, people almost never rang the bell. No visitors, no salesmen. Who could it be? She thought for a moment. Wrong number? No, that was only on the phone. The bell rang again, the same calm ring as before. She thought of the horror film she had seen the night before. In the film, a young woman was alone in a big, dark house during a storm. The lights went out and there was a loud knock on the door. She asked, "Who's there?" But before she finished speaking, the door opened and... But this was not a film. It was not raining and it was daytime. Marina did not believe in the living dead. Not when the sun was shining. The bell rang again, and this time she opened the door. A tall man stood there. He was handsome, wearing jeans and a white t-shirt. His smile was like one you saw in films. "Hello," he said. "Hello," Marina answered. "I've come to do the ironing for you," he said. Marina smiled, then stopped smiling and looked at him closely. She smiled again, tilted her head a little, then stopped smiling once more. She tried hard to think of something to say. Finally, she managed. "Sorry?" Then she asked, "You've come to do what?" The man kept smiling. "You wanted someone to do your ironing. You hate it. You made a wish, remember? That's why I'm here." Before Marina could answer, the smell of burning cloth reached them. They both ran quickly into the kitchen. Chapter 3. The burning shirt. The smell of the burning shirt was almost gone now. Most of it had gone with the shirt, which the strange man had carried outside. When they ran back into the kitchen, Marina acted fast. She grabbed the goldfish bowl and poured the water over the shirt. Luckily, she moved the iron away first. There was no real fish in the bowl. Marina liked animals too much to throw one onto a fire. There were other things she could have used, like the bottles of mineral water in the fridge. Tom always bought the same kind still water, never sparkling, Irish, not French, and always in glass bottles. He never changed what he liked. The goldfish, however, was only plastic. So Marina poured him and the water over the burning shirt. The plastic fish landed on the floor, and the little key in his side slowly turned. When you wound it up and put him back in water, he swam around, opening and closing his mouth. Marina had bought him in London for her nephew, but had decided to keep him. Soon he became important to her. Sometimes she watched him swim and whispered, "I know how you feel. I know how you feel." Now the smell in the kitchen was not of burning cloth, but of fresh coffee that Marina made for herself with care. She sat drinking it slowly, enjoying every drop. The man was gone. The shirts were ironed and placed neatly on the bed. Normally, Marina pushed them into the cupboard, happy not to see them again. But these shirts looked perfect, like new ones from a shop. She left them on the bed so Tom could see them when he came home. He would never notice that one shirt was missing. He had many, and they were all the same white with thin blue stripes. His suits were all dark grey, his jackets dark blue, his shoes all black except for brown walking shoes. Tom once explained his system. I get up, put on a shirt, put on a suit, put on shoes. I don't waste time choosing. It's quick, easy, and I save time. He thought Marina wasted time choosing clothes to match her feelings each day. For him, it always took 3 minutes. For her, much longer. Now Marina sat enjoying her wasted time, sipping coffee, listening to piano music on the radio, and looking at the garden. The garden was new, like the house. But while the house looked finished, though boring, like all the other houses on the street, the garden looked empty, waiting for someone to shape it. Marina and Tom had planted grass, but only parts had grown. The garden looked like Tom's beard when he was a student. Some thick parts like a coconut, and empty parts like an egg. As she watched, a butterfly flew across. It didn't stop in the garden, but it landed on the window near Marina. It moved its wings as if to say hello. Then it tapped the glass with one wing, then the other. Marina thought it was sending her a message in code. But she didn't understand. She never learned codes well. Once at school, she had joined a junior army group. She liked the uniform and the boots. But one day, during training, a teacher shouted at her for carrying a teddy bear on top of her bag. He said she looked stupid, and she left the group soon after without learning Morse code. Now, as the butterfly tapped its wings, Marina tapped her fingers back on the window, as if answering. They continued like this for some time, happy just to watch each other. Marina wondered what the butterfly thought of her life inside these 4 walls. Did it know about people living in straight lines? School, university, job, family, house, bigger house. Why didn't she fly free like the butterfly, moving up, down, back, and forward as she pleased? She remembered something she had read. If a butterfly lands on a flower in one part of the world, it can start a chain of changes that ends with an earthquake far away. She looked at it and asked softly, "What changes will you bring to my life? Will there be an earthquake because you visited me? An earthquake in my life?" She smiled at her own thought and opened her hand to invite it in. But at that moment, the front door opened. Tom was home. At first, she didn't notice. She was still lost in her thoughts with the butterfly. But then she remembered everything. The stranger who had done her ironing, and the butterfly who seemed to talk to her. A lot had happened today, more than any other day since moving here. She ran to Tom, excited to tell him everything. To her, nothing about the day seemed strange. She only wanted to share it all, because things don't feel real until we tell them to someone else. And Marina wanted this day to be real, so she told Tom everything. Chapter 4. Good and Bad. The next morning, after Marina had told Tom all about her day, Tom set off as usual for work in London. He drove to Cambridge Station and found a table to himself on the 8:35 train. He hoped nobody would sit opposite him because he needed the space for his phone, laptop, Financial Times, and a cappuccino from the cafe. When the train left, he relaxed. A whole table just for him. This was a good start to the day. He opened the small notebook he always carried in his jacket pocket. This was his good and bad book. In it, he wrote down everything good and bad that happened each day. At night, he could see if the day was good or bad. If the list of good things was longer, it was a good day. If the bad list was longer, it was a bad day. Simple. Once, before he was married, a girlfriend had asked him, "What if you have one wonderful thing and 7 small bad things? Isn't that still a good day?" Tom thought about it, but not for long. He already knew he wouldn't stay with that girlfriend much longer. And that would make it too difficult, he said. Besides, if something wonderful happens, then everything feels wonderful. Like when you are in love, everything looks good. He had liked that answer. He thought it sounded clever and maybe true. But when he mentioned love, the girlfriend had smiled and taken his hand, thinking he was talking about them. Tom soon stopped seeing her. Now, sitting on the train, he opened a fresh page in his notebook. He wrote the date and drew a line down the middle. On the left, he wrote good, and on the right, bad. Then he wrote under good, "Seat and table to myself on 8:35 train to London." He smiled and then looked back at yesterday's list. There were 7 things under good and only 1 under bad. Good. 1, found a good place to park the car. 2, finished my report. 3, gave my report to the boss before Brian did. 4, boss laughed at my joke. 5, showed the boss how to use the new copier. 6, got a new phone with 3 lines. 7, boss left before me and said, "Good man, Tom. What a day." Bad. Was Marina? He had written that late last night before sleeping. He hadn't explained it, just left it there. He had hoped sleep would help him understand. But now, as he read it again, the feeling returned. It was like having cold water thrown over him on a hot day. He remembered their conversation. It went something like this. "Hi, Marina, how are you?" "Hi, Tom, good day?" "Yeah, so-so." Then he asked about hers, expecting her to say, "Okay," or "Fine." But instead she said, "Wonderful, great, you won't believe it." She told him about a man who came to the house, did the ironing, and had coffee with her. He didn't give his name, didn't say where he came from, didn't ask for money. It made no sense to Tom. Then she told him about a conversation she had with a butterfly. She laughed while telling it, but Tom still thought it strange. He wasn't a man who liked to talk to animals, or even to people very much. Finally, she said she was going to London on Thursday to meet a friend. When Tom asked who, she said, "Joanne." Tom asked, "Joanne Searle?" Because that was the only Joanne they knew. Marina said yes. But Tom knew something she didn't. Joanne had quit her job 6 months ago and gone to Nepal to live with Buddhists. She planned to stay there for 3 years. Tom remembered this clearly. "I'm tired of running around," Joanne had told him before leaving. "I want to learn to be happy just being who I am." So why did Marina say she was meeting Joanne? Who was she really going to meet? Tom looked back at his notebook and wrote under bad, "Ironing man." "Butterfly." "Joanne." Then he added, "Is Marina going mad? Is my wife seeing another man?" Maybe yesterday had not been such a good day after all. Chapter 5. A stranger across the table. Tom was still on the train when his mobile rang. It was someone from the office. He answered. A few minutes later it rang again, another work call. Then it rang once more, this time from the phone company asking if he was happy with his service. Normally Tom loved his mobile. It let him stay connected everywhere. Even if his boss couldn't see him, he could still hear from him. Tom believed that, in business, you had to be seen or heard all the time or both. but now the calls annoyed him. He needed to think about Marina, and the phone wouldn't stop ringing. He walked to the toilet. He didn't need to use it, but he remembered that his phone never worked inside there. He had found this out on a trip before. He had been on a call when he went in, and the moment the door closed, the line went dead. At first he thought the train was in a tunnel, but it wasn't. The phone simply didn't work in the toilet. As soon as he stepped out, the phone rang again. So now he went in, closed the door, and sat there to think. He remembered how his father used to spend hours in the toilet when he was a boy. Maybe his father had also been looking for a quiet place to think. Tom tried to focus. Ironing Man, was Marina going mad or seeing someone else? Butterfly, was she imagining things? Joanne, why say she was meeting her when Joanne was in Nepal? Who was Marina really meeting in London? That was the question. When Tom went back to his seat, he was unhappy to see a man now sitting across the table. The man held up a newspaper that covered his face. Tom sat down and looked at the back page. He disliked this paper. It was full of large pictures and big headlines, more like a comic than real news. At university, he and his friends had played a game with this paper. They were given 3 minutes to read it, then asked questions. The men's teams always remembered the name of the half-dressed woman on page 3. There was always such a woman, and men never forgot her. Tom quickly got bored with the back page. He noticed another paper on the table, the local village paper. He usually found it boring too, filled with wedding news, lost cats, and ducks crossing the road. Today's headline was, "Save Our Ducks, Build a Bridge." Tom read through quickly. One story was about a bank manager who lost his hair and asked workers to shout at him, hoping it would grow back. Another was about the school sports day. Another about a man with the second largest cucumber in the world, whose wife still left him. He looked up. The man opposite was still holding his paper, still not turning the page. Was he asleep? Or just very slow? Tom went back to the village paper and looked at the advertisements. Suddenly, one caught his eye. Do you know where your wife or husband really is when they say they are visiting a friend? Worried they may have found someone else? It was an ad for a private detective. A mobile number was printed at the bottom with a promise. Bring me your problems. I will give you answers fast. Nobody else will ever know. Tom stared at it. He had only seen private detectives in American TV shows. But here, in his dull village paper, right next to the story about ducks, maybe this was the way to find out the truth about Marina. He underlined the number and called it. At once he heard another phone ringing. But strangely it sounded both in his ear and from across the table. The man lowered his newspaper, smiled at Tom and said, I see you found my advertisement. Chapter 6, The Massage and the Message. Marina sat looking at the fridge door. The letters now formed the word London. She had no idea who had moved them. She hadn't touched the letters since the day the ironing man came. She remembered seeing the word while talking to Tom. She was telling him about her strange day, but he seemed uninterested, looking away while she spoke. Then she too looked away and noticed the word London on the fridge. At that moment, she had suddenly said she was going to London to see a friend on Thursday. She didn't know why she said it, but the thought excited her. Why did she mention Joanne? Perhaps because Tom suggested the name, and she just agreed. But now Thursday had come, and she sat at home staring at the fridge, not knowing what to do. She had been so excited she hardly slept the night before. But now she realized she had no plan, no place to go. The idea of London had come from nowhere, and nowhere was probably where she would stay today. Feeling sad, she rubbed her neck. As a child, her mother always touched her back when she was upset. She loved to be touched. Even her own hands helped, but another person's touch, especially a massage, was wonderful. Just then the doorbell rang. Marina hurried to answer, hoping it was the ironing man. But it was a young woman about her age, blonde, with a big smile. "Oh, you don't know me," she said. "I'm Tracy, a beauty and massage consultant. Your friend asked me to give you a surprise massage." Marina laughed. "You know who phoned me then?" she asked. Tracy laughed too. "The ironing man. Yes, I think you know what that means." They laughed together as Tracy set up a massage table in the living room. She lit sweet-smelling candles and put on music of Brazilian rainforests. "Better than traveling," Tracy joked. "Well, cheaper anyway." The smells, the music, and Tracy's soft touch worked magic on Marina. In her mind, she traveled back to happy times with Tom, walking on Greek beaches at sunset, riding donkeys in Egypt, sitting on a mountain in Ireland. When the massage ended, Marina smiled with her eyes still closed, trying to hold on to those pictures. Finally, she opened them and saw Tracy smiling down at her. "How was that?" Tracy asked. "Wonderful," Marina replied. "Told you it was like traveling, almost as good as sex." Tracy laughed. They had tea together and Tracy told her story. She had married her school boyfriend, thinking love was all about giving flowers, chocolates, and spending time together. But after the wedding, the surprises stopped. He worked, watched TV, went to the pub, and thought marriage needed no effort. "It's like in stories," she said. "They always end when the couple marries. Nobody talks about what happens next. But love needs work. He didn't know that, so I told him to leave." Now Tracy lived differently. She only kept men while they were still romantic. When they stopped, she let them go. "Life's too short," she laughed. She explained that her current boyfriend was still full of surprises. He had brought her today, was taking her out later, and had even taken the day off just for her. Then Tracy looked at Marina and said, "Your ironing man is still romantic, isn't he? Enjoy it while it lasts." The doorbell rang again. Tracy looked outside. A man stood by a car. "That's my boyfriend," she said with a smile. "Strong shoulders, nice bottom. Just looking at him makes me shake." Marina wasn't sure if she meant sex or not. For her, sex was rare, about once a month. Maybe she even needed a lover. The thought surprised her. "Oh, I almost forgot," Tracy said suddenly. "I have a message from the ironing man. He says he'll meet you at the National Gallery at 2:00. In your favorite room, you know what that means." Tracy rushed out, kissed her boyfriend, and left. Marina looked at her watch. It was almost 12. She ran upstairs quickly, more alive than she had felt in months. She didn't hear Tracy's car leave or notice another car quietly following them. The detective smiled in his car. "Good timing," he thought. He had arrived 10 minutes earlier, checked the house number, and waited. He saw the man arrive, the woman answer, and then leave with bags. He watched them kiss and drive away together. He looked at his notes again. Yes, no mistake, this was Tom's wife, Marina. "Very interesting," he said as he started his engine and followed. Chapter 7. Just a painting. Marina reached the National Gallery in London and went straight to her favourite room. Tracy's message was clear, this was the place. The painting she loved was one Tom had shown her when they first started dating. It was his favourite, and it soon became hers too. She stood in front of it now. The painting showed a young woman in a simple white room, perhaps a kitchen or living room. Light from the window shone on the back of her head. She wore a scarf over her blonde hair, and was clearly expecting a baby. In one hand, she held a letter, while her other hand rested on her stomach. She smiled softly as she read. The whole picture felt calm and peaceful. When Tom and Marina first saw it, they sat in silence for 20 minutes. "What do you think?" Tom had asked. "It's beautiful," she had replied. At first, Tom used to talk a lot on their dates, mostly about himself, but later they learned to enjoy silence together, watching the sea, children in the park, or simply sitting side by side. That silence made them feel close. Now, though, there wasn't much silence between them. Marina spoke, and Tom only gave small noises to show he was listening, but not enough to invite her to say more. Back then, their silence spoke of love. Now, their silence felt empty. They had once played a game with Tom's nephew Rob in front of this painting. Each person had to say who the letter was from and what it said. Tom had joked about World Cup tickets, old lovers, or bills. Marina gave a romantic story about the husband traveling to find the perfect gift for his wife, promising to come home soon. Tom had looked at her in amazement and said, "Wow, this painting had always been special for them." "You're right," said a voice behind her. She knew it was the ironing man. "It is a letter of love from her husband. But come, I want to show you another painting." He took her hand, and together they walked through the gallery. Finally, they stopped in front of a large painting of 3 figures. In the center stood a man in rich clothes, head held high, smiling as if he owned the world. Behind him were signs of his wealth, houses, cars, beautiful women. But standing near him was a figure dressed in white, looking away with sadness. Marina looked closer and saw a third figure in the shadows, smiling coldly. His smile seemed to say, "All this is nothing. I will come for you as I come for everyone. Your money cannot stop me." "That one is death, isn't it?" Marina asked. The ironing man nodded. "And the one in white?" She thought for a moment and then smiled. "He's like you." He gave the man 3 wishes, and the man chose wealth. But now death has come, and the riches mean nothing. The ironing man smiled. "You've already given me 2 wishes," Marina said. "The ironing and the massage, and I still have one more." He nodded. "If I wished for Tom to come back to me, for us to love like before, could you do that?" "And what then?" the ironing man asked. "Would you 2 lose your way again? What do you really want?" "I want Tom and me to work hard at our love, to keep it alive. I know we can. I love him and he loves me. We've just forgotten how to try." "That's something you must do yourselves," the ironing man said. "But maybe I can give you time together, maybe a holiday, and maybe I can help Tom remember how much you mean to him." "Could you?" Marina asked. "I think I already have," he answered with a smile. Marina smiled back. "But then, that would be 4 wishes, wouldn't it?" "Everything is going up these days," he said, "even the number of wishes." They both laughed. "Can I buy you a drink?" Marina asked. "No," he said. "I think dinner is better. Italian. That's my wish." Chapter 8. The Detective's Report. Tom was leaving the office when his mobile rang. He looked at the screen, sighed, and thought it was work again. But he answered. "Hello, is that Dr. Watson?" a voice asked. Tom recognized the detective. The man had insisted they use false names. "You can never be too careful," he had said. "Yes, this is Watson," Tom replied. "And you are Mr. Holmes?" "I am ready to give my report," said the detective. "Now on the phone?" "No, better face to face, and you must pay me for my costs. Your wife has expensive tastes." "What do you mean? Where did she go? What did she do?" Tom asked quickly. All in good time, Dr. Watson. Not on the phone, the detective said. Well, I'm just leaving for home. I know, the detective answered. How do you know? I can see you from the phone box behind you. Tom turned and saw him. The detective stood in a phone booth a few meters away, wearing his heavy, dirty white coat and holding a cigar. Tom thought he looked like someone from TV, not a real detective. Where can we meet? Tom asked. Not here, someone might see us. Who cares if they do? Better to be careful. You never know who's watching. Tom sighed. Detectives must all be strange, he thought. Still, he needed to know what Marina had done. They met later in a noisy pub. Loud music filled the room, though it was nearly empty. It's good nobody will hear us, shouted the detective. Tom complained until the barman turned the music down a little. At last they could talk. The detective opened his notebook and began. I parked my car at 1127 outside number 35 Greater Blackbird Drive. After 10 minutes, I saw a car stop. The woman in question came to the door. Woman in question? You mean Marina, Tom cut in. Yes, your wife. She kissed the man who came in the car. What man? What car? Are you sure it was Marina? The detective frowned. If you interrupt, I'll never finish. Let me tell it all. Then you can ask. Fine, go on, Tom said. Your wife returned inside, then came out with the man, carrying 2 big bags. They drove off in a red Volkswagen Golf, license P237M. They took the A14 towards Boddington. I don't want road numbers or license numbers, Tom almost shouted. Just tell me what they did. Fine. They went to a sports centre, played tennis, lots of laughing. Not serious. I don't know who won. I prefer football. Do you play? Later, continue. Then they had lunch at an expensive Italian restaurant. I couldn't afford it, so I only had spaghetti and water. They didn't pay much attention to the food anyway, more looking into each other's eyes than at the plates. Tom felt a stab of pain. He didn't even know Marina liked tennis. After lunch, they drove to the coast, 100 kilometers. They walked on the beach, kissed for 5 minutes, and ignored everything else. Then they ran back to the car. The detective stopped for a moment, looking guilty, but Tom pressed on. And then they went back to Boddington, parked outside a small building with flats. They took the bags and she opened the door with a key. I checked with neighbours. It's her flat. The man was just the latest visitor. There had been others. Tom froze. His wife had her own flat with visitors? The detective looked at him with pity. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Chapter 9. The Wrong Woman. Tom got on the train home and dropped into the first empty seat. He didn't notice the other passengers at the table. He let his case fall and placed the envelope from the detective on the table. The detective's words repeated in his head. She was just the latest one. Tom shook his head and whispered, The latest one. Sorry, what did you say? Asked the woman opposite. Nothing, Tom muttered and went back to his thoughts. Had Marina really been living a double life? He knew she wasn't happy in the village, but could she have done this? She had never been secretive before. Could she really have felt so unloved? Oh, God, I've been so stupid, he said out loud. The woman opposite looked at him again. Maybe it wasn't too late. He loved Marina and he believed she still loved him. But what if she didn't? What if this latest one really mattered to her? The ticket inspector arrived and Tom searched for his ticket. It was in his pocket, along with 2 notebooks. After the inspector left, Tom opened the older notebook. It was from last year. Reading backwards, he saw Marina's name again and again, sometimes under bad, like, I got angry with Marina last night. How can she spend so much time on the phone talking about nothing? But mostly under good. Many entries like, we talked late, or we went to that Greek restaurant again. On Marina's birthday 2 years ago, he had written 18 good things all about her. 14 were about the presents he gave her, and the others about candles, a huge card, and their lovemaking. Tom put the notebook down. Would there be more birthdays like that? Could he win her back? His eyes moved to the envelope. Photographs. He didn't want to look, but he had to. Slowly he opened it. Color photos fell onto the table. A man getting out of a car. A man kissing a young woman. The same couple walking on a beach. The same couple in a restaurant. The same couple outside a house. But the woman wasn't Marina. Tom looked again at the photo of the house. It was his house, their house. But the woman wasn't Marina. The detective had followed the wrong woman. Yes, 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 Tom whispered fiercely, hitting the envelope with his hand. The woman opposite quickly hid behind her newspaper. Tom wanted to shout with joy. He had to tell someone. He tried the detective's number, but nothing happened. Then, suddenly his phone rang. It was the detective. Tom, are you okay? The man asked. They had dropped the fake names in the pub. Yes, Phil, but listen. The woman in the photos, it wasn't Marina, was it? Tell me, what did she look like? What was she wearing? Phil hesitated but gave a full description. It matched the woman in the photographs, not Marina. You're wonderful, Phil, Tom cried. I love you. The detective was shocked, then laughed when Tom explained. He was even more surprised when Tom offered him double pay. No, Phil said, use the money to take Marina on a real holiday. Look after her. Spend more time with her. Don't lose her. I will, Tom promised. Phil added, anyway, I'm giving up this detective job. It's not for me. I don't like making good people unhappy. After hanging up, Tom noticed the woman was still hiding behind her paper. Perhaps she had heard him telling another man he loved him. He smiled. He wouldn't see her again. On the back of her newspaper was an ad. Holidays in the West Indies. It took Tom less than 5 minutes to call the number and book 2 weeks away. He left a message for his boss. He was taking time off and leaving the job to spend more time with his wife. Then he walked to the toilet, his phone ringing in his pocket. To his surprise, it worked inside this time. But he didn't care. He dropped it into the toilet, pressed the button, and watched it disappear onto the tracks. The ringing grew faint, then stopped. Silence. Chapter 10. On the shore. Tom and Marina had now been on holiday for a week, and they felt relaxed and close again. During the long flight to Barbados, they had shared their stories. Marina told Tom about Tracy, the massage, and her meeting with the ironing man. Tom told her about Phil, the detective, and the mistake with the wrong woman. They both laughed, helped by the flight attendant, who thought they were on their honeymoon and kept offering champagne. So who was the ironing man? Tom asked. Where did he come from? I don't know, Marina said. Maybe he was only in my head. But Tracy was real, Tom said. She said he sent her, so maybe he was real too. Does it matter? Marina smiled. He helped us. That's all that matters. You're right, Tom agreed. On their second day, after a long sleep, Tom had written things to do at the top of a page. Then he crumpled the paper and threw it into the toilet. From then on, they made no plans. They did what they felt like together. Now, one evening, they walked along the empty beach. The sun had set and most people had gone back to the hotel. The beach seemed theirs alone. Suddenly, Tom stopped. He noticed a small group sitting further along. 3 people, 2 men and a woman, laughing together as they looked out at the sea. One of the men was big, and for a moment Tom thought he recognized him. Could it be Phil, the detective? The second man was tall and handsome. Marina also turned to look. "Are you all right?" Tom asked. "Oh, yes," she said softly. "I'm very, very all right." She wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him deeply. When they finally stopped, the group had disappeared. Marina glanced back and said, did you hear that woman's laugh? It sounded like Tracy's, and the tall man, he looked like... But no, that's not possible, is it?